Rebel Devs Podcast, a show that challenges conventional thinking in the tech industry. Each episode features conversations with solutionists who have taken unconventional approaches to problem solving, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in their respective fields. Join the devolution.
Hey, Rebel Dev listeners. Welcome to our latest episode. My name is Tom May, one of our hosts. With me always is my partner in crime, Jonah May. Jonah May, good morning, good day. How's it going?
Good morning. It's going. I mean, work is work, and I'm getting ready to bomb out of here later today and head to Florida for a week, so that'll be nice.
Nobody feels jealous for you in anywhere, way, shape, or form. So we have a special guest as always here. We have Greg from CloudIBR. Greg, good
morning, guys. Morning, Jonah. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. Tell us a little bit about yourself, since some of our listeners may not know you.
Cool. So I have a pretty cool background in disaster recovery and backup. I started in the business when I was about 15 years old. I had a Novell NetWare 2.12 server in my bedroom at my parents' house. And I had lost all my data, all my homework, and my gaming scores. So I went out, bought a tape drive. I got a copy of ArcServe at like some trade, swap meet or something, back when things actually came on floppy disks. And I set up ArcServe on my NetWare server. I backed up my data. And then later that year, me and my buddy got 10 megabit laser Ethernet beams. We mounted them on the roofs of our parents' houses, and we had a 10 megabit WAN between our two houses. So I was doing offsite backup as a teenager, which was pretty cool. And then a few years later, when I was 19, I got hired at Cheyenne Software, the original makers of ArcServe. So I did that for a bunch of years, went to McKinsey & Company, and I built out their disaster recovery platform. Back then it was with IBM up in Sterling Forest, New York. So basically been doing DR my whole life, and we started Continuity Centers 25 years ago, 2000.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I almost blacked out a little bit when you said the word ArcServe, because I had so much trauma in my early days of tape jockeying NT4 tapes that never worked. It always worked when you were there testing it, and then you'd run it at night, it wouldn't work. And so, I don't know, I had to come back into consciousness there, but we've kind of moved further away, I think, in the world from ArcServe and whatnot. Good, bad memories there, but Continuity Centers. And today we've brought you on to talk about a product that you have, CloudIBR, which on our podcast, Jonah and I really, as just kind of the DR vanguard sort of weird guys, we really just like talking about products that work. So whenever our listeners hear about a product, it's because we use it and we believe in it. And so I think our relationship started maybe a year and a half ago, somewhere in there. And I'd just love for you to tell us a little bit about what CloudIBR is. I mean, just give us the whole bang.
Sure. So it started back in 2020. That's when we started using Veeam at our company and replaced, ironically, we were using ArcServe D2D at the time. So my life had come full circle. I came back to ArcServe, 3 decades later. So we switched over to Veeam. And the reason we switched was because they were first to market with immutability. So immutable backups, before that, everyone was storing things on Windows servers. And I had seen backups get either corrupted or ransomware, et cetera. So we did a full cutover of every client. It took about a year. We cut everyone over to Veeam. That was version 10 when that first came out. And I was actually doing a lot of work with Backblaze. That's also when object storage first came out. So we started working with Backblaze. We did some work with Wasabi, and we were basically doing server offloads of all our customers' data from our vaults to the customers. And one of the questions that Backblaze asked me is, they said, we get a lot of customers who call and say, hey, it's great that we can send you all this data, but how do we make sure it's good? How do we recover from there? And there's manual ways you could do it, but as you know, IT, you're always focusing usually on the production stuff. What's down, what's the squeaky wheel that we have to oil today, what's the next big project we're working on. So a lot of people don't really focus on DR. They talk about it and it gets brought up once a year. and they just don't have the time or resources to focus on it. So one of the cool things about Veeam is they have a lot of great stuff that you can automate with PowerShell, with REST API calls. So we put a team together a few years ago to start writing an application that would stand up servers in the bare metal cloud for you. It powers them up. It installs Windows on one. It installs Veeam on that server. It adds your object storage repository or your Cloud Connect backup if you're dealing with a partner. And it decrypts the backups and it begins restoring them to a bunch of ESXi hosts. So we basically build out this full infrastructure with the ESXi hosts, firewall, port mappings, OpenVPN, IPsec tunnels. The entire infrastructure you need is completely built out via automation, and it recovers all your servers and gives you access to them.
That's pretty amazing. I know Jonah has a little background at a previous service provider we worked at building his own version of this. Jonah, it was absolutely easy, wasn't it? It just always worked. There's never bugs.
I mean, it took us probably a good 2 years to build it there. And that was back, before Veeam even had REST APIs. So part of that conversion was, upgrading it from PowerShell to REST APIs where we could in version 11 when those were initially added. And even then, there was a heavy reliance on databases and making sure our own infrastructure was up. And, we also had to go in and performance tune a lot to get better restore performance. And a lot of it was essentially taking what we had as VMware clusters for replication customers and adding some additional resources to piggyback off of those clusters. So, for a customer who could afford services like us hosting their data in-house, it made sense. But there was also, and I find this issue at my current service provider too, a challenge in a lot of the maybe small business and MSP market where they don't necessarily have that budget and they need a lower cost offering, but also don't care as much about recovery times, but still need some sort of off-site target.
Well,
From what I've seen, CloudIBR kind of perfectly fills that niche with object storage.
it definitely does. I know in our world of doing professional services, we get a lot of customers that don't really fit the mold for a Veeam cloud service provider. Some do, some don't. But even if they were with a cloud provider, we're always go to S3, have a tertiary solution, and put your backups there. And where we live in is just they go somewhere. And on your worst day, you'll go ahead and pull it back. But alternately, we know that in even the ArcServe days, right? That was even the MCSE test where test your backups. Backup's not good if you don't test it. And when we met Greg, it was, now we can hook to these Backblaze or Wasabi backups that are sitting there for pennies on the dollar, but we can't really use them unless we go through this manual process. And kind of layering on the idea of like Veeam Recovery Orchestrator. Veeam it'll go ahead, it'll mount, it'll test, it'll do all these sorts of deals. Well, here comes CloudIBR. And so now I'm getting excited in my world. I'm going, here's a product that does something that I had designed a long time ago and was hard to hold. Now it's doing it in the S3 buckets. Well, that's great. And then Greg starts showing us some reports. And it was like, wait a minute, we can automate this. It can test us. It can bring us reports. Now, all of a sudden, the auditor side of me gets excited. So when we go through a test, Greg, tell us kind of what we're doing in that. Because also, I think we should touch upon, you mentioned like OpenVPN in there. You have connectivity. That was the next thing. How many times, even in service providers, do these guys spin you into their cloud? And they're like, look, we failed you over. You can't access it and you can't get back. So I know there's more to it. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what's our connectivity? How do we fail over? Those sorts of deals.
Sure. So the inspiration for all of this comes from doing this for decades. When we first started Continuity Centers in 2000, people would bring their tapes to us and I would take their tapes. We'd put them in tape drives. We'd run restores. We'd stand up their environment, prove that the tape worked or didn't. They usually didn't. And then we would give them remote access. Back then it was ISDN and T1s. So it was, much different than the internet we know as it today. And over the decades of evolution of that, of setting up the remote access, all the complexities of it, what we determined, as we were building CloudIBR was we need to build something that's easy, that doesn't require any technical know-how, because most small and mid-sized businesses usually only have that one internal IT person. And that person is running their IT for the entire company. They know all their applications. They know the infrastructure. but they're not DR experts. Disaster recovery isn't what they're accustomed to doing. So, and most of those customers that we've been meeting that fall into that, they have an RTO before they meet us of several weeks, and they're okay with that. And they're not okay with it, but they have to be okay with it because that's all they know. They're going to basically order new equipment. They're going to drop ship it somewhere. If it's a building type issue at their facility, where are we going to ship the equipment, power it up, configure networking, just doing a whole new greenfield environment and then trying to restore their backups. So what we've built is the ability to stand that all up, within an hour. It takes 1 hour to stand up the entire infrastructure. And then the time after that is how long it takes to restore your data. So we typically see about 2 terabytes an hour on the restore speed. So depending on the customer size, your RTO can be anywhere from 2 hours to usually 24 hours is about the max that we see. The open VPN on the firewall that we built, you basically add in all of the users that you want to have access into our portal, and they will get an encrypted email at time of recovery. It has their credentials for the firewall. They install the open VPN client if they don't already have it, and they just get access into their environment like that. We also do IPsec tunnels directly from that same firewall to branch locations, your corporate, all that. And it's real simple connectivity.
No, and I love that you kind of qualified the RTO in there also. I think a lot of times people have two different perceptions. There's I want to buy a service, it better be quick, and it better not fail, and it better be perfect, and it better be tight. And then there's the reality in the middle of a disaster. They realize they don't care about that. They just want return to service. When we talk about S3, I always think of, if that's your primary backup, this is the do-it-yourselfer. You're home, or you've read something on Reddit, you decide to go into the office, you're like, here's Veeam, let me hook to S3. Oh, great, right? What they don't realize is these time periods to take S3 down, this could be 24 hours manually. This could be 36 hours. When you're talking about standing up in an hour, and then you're talking about bringing in connectivity, and then 2 terabytes an hour. I mean, even if we're sitting at 4-6 hours here for a decent sized environment, the reality is that's light years ahead. But in our architecture, like I chose the word tertiary on purpose because we're already seeding data center 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. Our tertiary solution is everything has gone awry. Like it's just not there. Everything's down wherever. I'm in an Azure, I'm in an AWS. They go sideways. I have this ability to be over there. I'm in the Veeam data cloud. I have somewhere else I can recover into. So it really brings a lot of sanity and ease in here. But as we start moving over there, I think it's probably important to do some education. So you're a guy that's been doing this now. So we're going to call you the expert on your application. And because you deal with a lot of the S3 backups, I don't think a lot of people do. I think they set it and forget it. But because you're actually testing it, what's some of the things that you've learned or can recommend to the listeners? I mean, what do I do when setting this up to really get it healthy and good?
So 2 ways to do it. You can either do 3 ways. Direct to object storage if you're not working with a partner, or you can use the partner's object storage through their Cloud Connect. Or if you're running a sober scale-out backup repository internally, you can do offloads to the object storage capacity tier. And what we've seen, and what's nice about CloudIBR is it runs monthly by default. Some people run it weekly, but every month when that automated recovery runs, it's actually reaching into your bucket and pulling that data out. This isn't a simulation. We're not, it's not just standing up servers. It is actually pulling that data out live from the bucket to make sure it's all readable. And a couple of things that we see quite often is CloudIBR recovery runs, and by default, we skip servers that are older than 7 days, the backups. So if the server backup has a run in 7 days or more, by default, we'll skip it. Reason being is we're assuming it's been decommissioned so that we're not restoring all your old servers. And we've had customers come on who've been backing up to whichever object storage it is. They've been doing it for the past year or two since V10 came out. And they sign up with CloudIBR, they run a recovery, and we skip 100% of their servers and it says these latest backup is from 2022. And here we are, 2024, 2025, and backups haven't successfully actually been sent to Backblaze or Wasabi or whoever in the past couple of years. And actually, one of the things that recommend is that you enable health checks on all of your direct-to-object storage backups. We've seen customers who the backup is saying it's running successfully every night. It's sending it to object storage, and it shows there in the drop-down menu from the UI of Veeam. But when you go to restore it, it gives an unrecoverable or unreadable error because at some point in the chain, one of the backups got corrupted, and every backup after that, even though it says successful, it isn't recoverable. And the way you determine that is you enable health checks, and as soon as you enable health checks, next time it runs within that next day, you will see that it says, this backup from this point is unrecoverable, which means everything after it is no good. So that's super critical, is have health checks enabled. I don't believe they are by default as of the latest Veeam. So definitely get that enabled, and make sure you're checking the logs, make sure you have some type of monitoring set up to let you know. And then essentially the only fix at that point is to run an active full backup so that it creates a brand new full backup VBK of all those servers. And now every month when CloudIBR runs, you can find out, have your backups been 100% successful.
No, that's really important. I think everybody skips over the health checks. I always forget to put them on, honestly, as much as I do it, and I have to go back and do it. It's funny that you mentioned about finding things that weren't backed up. We were working with a demo customer, all three of us at one point, and talking about different things with IBR. And I looked at one of my customers, and sure as anything, I realized, it ran a test and it hadn't backed up because something was disabled at some point. And so while I don't monitor that customer, I was able to reach out and go, nothing's going up to the cloud, right? And it was, oh my goodness. So you're right. It's just, there's another failsafe in testing that. Why would I ever think that my job has not run and all of a sudden this caught it rather than something else? With our Veeam monitoring, we would catch it because that's what we do. But if some customers for us, they just kind of call us for pro services. I don't have insight. All of a sudden now I did, just because of hey, let me show you what CloudIBR does. Jonah, you've been using S3 since Veeam first started hooking into it. What are your thoughts of what Greg's saying with health checks and whatnot? What are some of the gotchas or things that you recommend to people?
I mean, the health checks are spot on. Even from a, service provider perspective who may still be running Windows or Linux rather than in-house S3, that is something we've always recommended customers enable. Anytime you're traversing the public internet, it increases the likelihood of that sort of corruption. And the newer Veeam releases, I know you can go into some of your advanced job settings, like encryption, health checks, and you can save settings as default. But yeah, that initial setup, encryption's not enabled on jobs, health checks aren't enabled, and to me, it's long overdue that I really wish Veeam would maybe figure out a way to do those by default. Like maybe on first launch, tell you, hey, here's your default encryption password. Oh, and by the way, health checks are enabled monthly, because I think those are both extremely long in the tooth.
Absolutely. Well, I think encryption, we probably don't, because sometimes people land to data stores that are encrypted on the hardware levels, but you're right, a prompt would be health checks. I've never understood why that's not just turned on in there. That's silly.
It is for sobers. So for the scale-out backup repositories, they have them enabled by default, but not for the direct-to-object. Another great thing that we come across that shocks a lot of the customers is their encryption keys. They have it documented. They think they have it documented correctly, and they will run 4 or 5 recoveries in a row with CloudIBR, and our software will tell them in the UI, the encryption key, that encryption key could not be used to decrypt these backup jobs. You have to add another one. And a lot of them will swear up and down, this is the key, this is the key. And one of the cool features with CloudIBR is you can do a manual recovery. So we have 2 types, auto shutdown and manual shutdown. The auto shutdown, you can run anytime you want. And by default, it runs once a month, and it builds out the physical bare metal cloud. It does all those restores. It does 100% of everything I mentioned earlier. And at the end, it just automatically shuts down all the physical hardware and wipes everything out. The manual shutdown, you it does all of the identical stuff, except it doesn't shut down at the end. It leaves it up and running indefinitely so that you, your staff, your colleagues, you can all interact with it. You can test the VPN, you can test the servers, etc. So in the case of the encryption key where it's not working, what they'll do is they'll do a manual recovery, log into the VBR that we've built for them, and they'll try to run that, try to decrypt their backups. And we've had some who never could get it to work. So the fix for that is you have to go create a new encryption key. And you create a new encryption key that'll force inactive full that night for all of those backups. And now they'll use that encryption key with CloudIBR and it will run successful. As long as they don't, because the original encryption key is stored in the VBR at their site, as long as they don't lose that configuration backup, they'll always be able to restore older backups. But should they ever lose that VBR and not have it backed up, which is a great point, always make sure your VBR is backed up and included in the bucket that you're recovering with CloudIBR. And there's actually a few different reasons for that. One, you'll have those old encryption keys should you need to restore any older data. But for failback, after a lot of customers ask, hey, we failed over to CloudIBR, we're running there, it's been a week, a month, whatever it is that we're running our production out of the bare metal cloud, how do we get back? So currently VMware has the easiest method of getting back. And essentially what we do for you, we have a offering called Platinum Plus where we'll 100% manage this. We'll help our partners with it. Or you could do it yourself with any version of our software. Which basically you take your VBR that we recovered for you, and you need to have the IPsec tunnel back to your production network, and you will add the ESXi host that we built for you at CloudIBR into that VBR, and you'll set up replication jobs, and you could do that initial seeding, do hourly replication, it's snapshots. Veeam calls it replication. But it's basically an hourly snapshot that it sends over and commits back to your production server. So even if the seeding back to your site takes a couple of days because you don't have as much bandwidth as say the data centers have, you can still be using your production network at CloudIBR the entire time. And then you create a failover plan. And Saturday morning, 10 a.m., you right click on the failover plan, run it now, and it will gracefully shut down all of your guests at CloudIBR. It will do that final snapshot over your production environment and power them up. So typically less than an hour to fail back. And that's VMware does that really cool. For Hyper-V and for Proxmox, Nutanix, all of them, typically what you need to do is and you should do this for any environment. Once you fail over to us, this is your new production environment. You want to log into your VBR that we recovered for you and create backups for all of your servers to get them out of CloudIBR, out of the bare metal cloud, because you need backups if you're going to stay with us for any amount of time. So you're backing up all your data to object storage or your Cloud Connect provider. And I won't say it's easy, and this is why we offer it as a service, because it's definitely not easy, but the fastest method of failing back in that environment is you want to have a SOBR at your facility. So you have your local performance tier and your capacity tier. And let's say you lost all that and you built a brand new physical environment. You would create that same SOBR and using the CloudIBR bucket, the one that you've been backing up to, and then you can select all of those backups from object storage and re-download them to your capacity tier. So that might take 24, 48 hours to seed all that data into your building. And again, you could still keep using your production environment at CloudIBR. So you seed your SOBR, and then the day of the cutover, you're going to manually do what a failover plan does. You're going to gracefully shut down all your servers. You're going to run that final backup into object storage. Then you go to your SOBR, you download those final incrementals, which should be pretty quick because they should be pretty small at that point. And now you can run a local LAN speed restore from your SOBR to your production gear. If you don't have a SOBR, then you just basically have to shut down at CloudIBR and restore everything from object storage, and that could take a while. So SOBR definitely speeds that process up.
Absolutely. And on the backup configs, the one thing I'll add in that we mentioned it, but we didn't tie it together is it's important to make sure you encrypt those backup configs. So that way all those encryption keys will be in there. If you're just doing a regular config backup by default, it's not going to grab that. It's going to grab some job names and whatnot. So always encrypt it, keep that password off to the side, because Greg's right. That's your Hail Mary. Blow away that Veeam, import in that config, put in that encryption key. Everything is back and you'll be able to work through it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd say one of the most important things you just said was keeping the encryption key to the side, because one thing I see commonly is, customers are self-hosting their own password vault, or maybe they're not using a vault, but they store their encryption key in an Excel spreadsheet on their file server. And, if your infrastructure's down, how do you get into those systems? You really should be running a USB drive with that encryption password in your break glass accounts, or a cloud instance somewhere, or, even these days too, with newer Veeam, I don't think most customers know it was added in one of the 12 releases. You can auto rotate your encryption passwords and run it all through a KMS, which you could put up in one of the, run out of one of the big 3 public clouds.
Yeah, and I definitely like the USB break glass scenario, like you're saying, like old school key pass or something sitting there on a USB. 2 or 3 key people have those. They're rotated regularly and they're put in fireboxes or whatever. So really that complete offline copy has always made me kind of go. Greg, you were going to say something and I kind of ran over you. So where are you going?
It's funny. Yeah. So on that topic of rotating encryption keys, we don't have this functionality yet. That's something that we're looking into for in the future, is for that customer to be able to reach out and send us those encryption keys and put via REST API and put them into CloudIBR. Because if you're rotating the encryption key, something that actually happened to one of our customers last year was their CloudIBR recovery ran and it failed to decrypt 100% of their backups. The backups were all there. They were successful. It saw them. We just couldn't decrypt them. So customer said, well, I didn't change it. And what ended up, after they did some forensics, they had been hacked. The hacker hadn't launched the ransomware yet, but had breached their Veeam server and changed all their encryption key. They only have one key. Changed their encryption key. And the reason they do that is they're now waiting for your data to time out, some of your retention, get it 30 days out. And now they launched the ransomware attack. The backups were immutable, so they wouldn't be able to delete the backups. But by changing the encryption key and then launching ransomware, the customer has a choice. I either need to pay the ransom or I need to roll back 30 days, or however long that the hacker let that data age out. So, and CloudIBR caught it. The timing, it was about 4 to 5 days after the key had been changed is when we couldn't recover any of the servers anymore. So that was a real cool thing for the customer to get that notification. At first they thought it was, something wrong with the product. And within about a day, they realized the product saved them. So that was cool.
So the question I would have is, they benefit from the new 4 eyes authorization then too?
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about 4 eyes? And then I was going to actually pepper over and say, do you think Enterprise Manager with key recovery could help out of that to both of you all? So a lot of people don't run Enterprise Manager, but I like it for key recovery. So Jonah, I'll let you tell us a little bit more about 4 eyes and kind of what that works with in Veeam.
Yeah, so I believe it was added back in 12.1 back over the summer. So it's getting close to a year old now. So the thought with it is any critical backup or restore procedures, such as, I believe changing immutability period, changing retention, potentially changing encryption key, once it's enabled, can no longer be performed just by a single user. So, if a single account, the local admin or a user gets social engineered, if that account was compromised, the hacker can't just go in and change, the encryption key anymore. If they somehow get past 2-factor authentication, basically there would be an alert that would be sent out to the other Veeam administrators, who would then, one or several people would have to go in and then approve that change. So it's essentially a layer of change management on top of critical Veeam processes.
Yeah, and it's good to do it via distribution group, because if it's just 2 separate email addresses, there's always the chance that 2 people could get hacked. And now I can issue the change with account A and approve it with account B. It does bring down the likelihood a lot, but using a distribution group, and it's such a great feature because everyone will get that notification that so-and-so tried to make this change. And before you approve it, you want to talk to them. And it's pick up the phone, do a Teams meeting, walk over to their office if you're in the office, and actually have a conversation of, hey, why are you doing this? What's the reasoning? And better yet is for the person making the change, notify everyone ahead of time. FYI, I'm going to be doing this. This is why we're doing it. Because the more security you put in place, the more creative the hackers get. And we just need to be more diligent than them in communicating with each other and, trust but verify.
That's a good point with the 4 eyes. A lot of people do overlook that. And Greg, that's right. I would never even have thought using a distribution group, honestly, because they are going to try. I mean, that's the whole thing. Those of us that have been kicking around forever, we've gone through iterations of DR, right? It was make sure you have a backup because that would get you back. And then it was ransomware and they would attack the backup. So then we put them off site. Well, now they can't touch it. Well, then they realize, well, if your backup application has touches for retentions and whatnot, if you manipulate the backup system, and they just keep getting more creative, and people get so frustrated with it that we become so akin to security. And the reality is they don't get paid if you have good backups. So they have to get more creative to get paid. And so really there's just this blending of the two worlds of security. So that's a really good touch point in there. And that's kind of why even in the most secure environments that we're in, we're always like, bring us a different dev in for an audit. You might be the world's leading Veeam engineer. Sometimes you just need that second person saying, have you thought about this? And that's where I think a lot of people miss that is. And now I'm going to play the cheap card. Ready? And I think it's a little silly, but we're going to go, Greg, I don't really need CloudIBR because I have sure backup. Veeam gives it to me. It's in my license. I have some horsepower. Like, come on, man, I'm testing my backups. Why in the world do I need CloudIBR?
Sure. So sure backup is awesome, but it's only doing those recoveries for the servers in your building that for those local backups. So it's doing it from your Linux or your Windows repository. It doesn't touch your object storage backups as well. And hopefully in your disaster, you get to use those local backups for recovery. There's two main reasons why people aren't able to do that these days. One is a physical disaster, same thing that's been around for forever, is if your building is affected, your equipment's affected, it doesn't matter how good your local backups are, they're not available. The newest thing over the past few years is with ransomware. If your production network gets encrypted and you're going to call possibly the FBI, the insurance company, a lot of, the insurance is usually the first person they call right after IT. The insurance company won't let you restore over the encrypted servers because they want to get copies of everything. They want to do forensics on it. And they basically put yellow tape around your data center and say, don't touch. And most companies don't have twice as much storage available that they would need to run a side-by-side replica of theirs. Plus, it could be desktops in your building that are corrupted. That are infected. You don't really want to stand up locally in a lot of cases. You want to stand it up somewhere else that's isolated from your building. So most ransomware attacks, when you recover with CloudIBR, don't bring up the IPsec tunnel back to corporate by default. Recover it so that it's in its isolated environment. Only let users whose machines have been scanned, let them log into VPN to start accessing it. But yeah, the Shore backup is great for that. Another good comparison, it was Marty Williams at Veeam 2 years ago at Veeam. When I first showed him the product, he said, wow, this is like VRO Lite. And VRO, Veeam Recovery Orchestrator, is an awesome, awesome product. But similar to, you brought up Enterprise Manager a couple of minutes ago for resetting your encryption keys or retrieving them. That's an awesome product too. But just look at the first word of that product name, Enterprise Manager. So 80%, I'm going to guess, because 72% of statistics are made up on the spot. So I'm going to guess that 80% of customers using the 80-20 rule of Veeam customers don't use Enterprise Manager. And it probably could be higher than that. So Why don't they run it? Well, it's another server to support. It's another server to upgrade. It's another application. And they're not an enterprise. Look at how many people run Veeam Community Edition and don't even have to, they use a free version of Veeam. So Enterprise Manager is kind of like VRO. Veeam Recovery Orchestrator is awesome. You get Site A, production, Site B, you stand up a bunch of cabinets, your SAN, all your hosts, and you replicate, either CDP, love CDP. We still sell that. That's a great product, doing real-time replication or continuous data protection, hourly snapshots with replication. We do all that as part of a DRaaS, disaster recovery as a service. But, you're talking thousands a month to tens of thousands a month between management, staff, colo, bandwidth, hardware. It's an expensive endeavor that 20% or less of the world, is actually going to spend that type of money. And that's where with CloudIBR, we start at $149 a month. So you don't get the same thing as VRO. VRO, you're getting, several minute RTO. You're getting real-time replication with CDP or hourly snapshots with replication. But you can do, which is cool, you can do hourly backups to your either sober or direct to object. So a lot of our customers, they used to just do nightly backups. What they're doing now is, because they have CloudIBR, is they run hourly backups, maybe from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Some do it 24/7, so that when CloudIBR goes to run a recovery, your RPO, recovery point objective, might only be an hour or two, depending on when your last backup ran. Enterprise Manager, VRO, all awesome products. We sell them, we support them, we love them, but not everyone can afford them. So that's kind of what we built CloudIBR for, was the rest of the world, the people who, don't have that budget.
Yeah, and I'm glad you went down that with Recovery Orchestrator, because that's where I was going to go next. But even just beyond the cost of it, I mean, you've already got to go up to the highest tier of Veeam licensing, number one. So you're talking incurring a cost there just to run it. But, I've always said Recovery Orchestrator is a great product. It came out around the time that or at least started to become mainstream around the time that I built out the internal automations at my last service provider for DR testing. But, it has a lot of limitations. I say it's a great theory and a bit of a lackluster implementation. Like, I wish I would see it grow a little bit, because a lot of it under the hood for the backup side of things is built on Shore Backup and Shore Replica. So there's no support for Veeam Cloud Connect. It's, I'm sure, possible with scripting, but a bit of a pain to actually test anything that's offsite backup. It tends to prefer local backups first, and it is a little limited in the workloads you can even just recover from it.
Yeah, and most companies don't have the bandwidth necessary to be able to do a full restore of object storage in a timely fashion. So that's what's cool about CloudIBR, is you're standing it up in a data center, a tier 3 data center that has, multiple, dozens or hundreds of gigabytes of internet connectivity, depending on which location. And the restore speeds, like I said, we get about 2 terabytes an hour restore speed. And Veeam Data Vault, the latest object storage to market, that actually has been getting the fastest restore speeds. So if you haven't, anyone who hasn't checked that out yet, that's a really cool product that Veeam released, a few months ago.
No, that's definitely, I love VRO. The complexities are there. It's great as a professional services partner, because we get to go ahead and implement those. And why wouldn't we? But when it comes to that offsite, I mean, here's the deal. Even in the VRO documentation, it hooks into Azure, and right away they're sitting there and they're kind of doing this whole, make sure you have your Azure guru figure out your price points of how much it's going to cost to run, because we don't know. We're going to put it there, we're going to run it, but you're going to be stuck with the bill. And that's something I love about your pricing, Greg, is you have multiple tiers in there, but also I'm not paying for a full instance of Azure where I'm figuring out about cycles and CPU and all that. Can you kind of high level the pricing? Because it is really sweet. And listeners, go to the website, because he's got it all there. So go ahead, Greg.
Cool. Yeah, it's cloudibr.com. And there are 4 plan levels: Silver, Gold, Platinum, and Platinum Plus. Silver starts at $149 a month if you pay annually, or $199 a month if you pay monthly. Anyone who signs up gets the first 30 days for free. And not only do you get usage of CloudIBR for free, but you actually get unlimited free usage of the bare metal cloud for the first 30 days as well. So there's literally zero spend to onboard, which generally takes about 27 minutes on average, we've seen. As long as you know your Veeam environment and how it's set up, you can onboard in less than 30 minutes with CloudIBR, run your first recovery. Gold, you can get the pricing online, but basically it goes up to $749 a month Platinum Plus, or $999 a month if you pay monthly. And that Platinum Plus includes us being there. It's a human level support versus just software, which is what Silver and Gold are. You're getting a software subscription, software as a service. You onboard yourself, you run your own tests, you fully manage it. And that's what a lot of our partners use, is they're reselling that to their customers and putting their own services around it. And then a lot of our partners actually also buy the Platinum Plus because they know that, we've got dozens of years of experience of just doing DR. That's all our company does, through backup and DR. So most of our partners offer many different services. They're not as Veeam focused as like you guys are. They are, selling the security, the management of their desktops, their laptops. They're a traditional MSP. So they bring us in the background as the DR experts with the Platinum Plus model. If you don't have Veeam yet, that's one of the requirements to use our product, is you need to have Veeam. If you don't have Veeam and you want to give Veeam a shot, there is a promo code when you're signing up on our site. It's Veeam30, VEEAM 30, all lowercase. And what that gets you is a 30-day trial license of Veeam software so that you can start doing backups to object storage, because you can't do that with the community version. So you need a licensed version of Veeam in order to do direct to object, or to create a SOBR, I believe, as well.
No, that's great that you have the Veeam license in there, because you're right. A lot of people are community edition. And I think that the landscape is, I know I need something, I go free, it's writing it, I have an incident. Okay, I have now lost everything, paid ransom or just rebuilt. Hopefully I'm still alive. Now I want to buy Veeam and go. So it's nice that you have that in there. As we can start to kind of wind down a little bit, we've thrown a lot out there. I kind of want to get some inside information here, Greg. So what's coming up new in the product? Like, we're here, we're in the US, we're talking Veeam. I mean, what sneaky information can you divulge to us? Well, where's the product going?
Sure. So the next big thing that we're working on is to bring the product international to dozens of different countries, so that you're not just recovering in the US. Most other countries have GDPR, et cetera, where they can't, send their data across international lines. So, and that actually had one other point on pricing. I talked about the 4 plan levels. There is one other fee, and that is the cost for renting the bare metal cloud. And on our site, if you click on the DR calculator, you basically punch in how much memory you need in your ESXi hosts. Do you want 0.5 terabyte, 2 terabytes, 3 or 4? And you put in how many terabytes of storage you'll need in your production environment to recover all your servers to. And on the low end, for the smallest clients, it comes out to be about 74 cents an hour for recovery of their environment. On the highest end, the biggest customers are around $18 an hour. Most are in the $3 to $5 range. So if your recovery takes 6 hours to run at $4, you're going to spend an extra $24 a month. So nothing that breaks the bank. But for what we're talking about internationally, what we're building right now is integration with Google's VMware Cloud it's Google Cloud VMware Engine. And what that is a full-blown version of VCF, the VMware Cloud Foundation. So you're getting NSX, vSAN, vCenter. You're getting a full-blown VCF environment built out on Google hardware, and we will recover your environment to the Google Cloud. So it's not like Azure, what you were mentioning. It's not virtual servers. We're restoring your servers virtually, but restoring them to physical dedicated hardware for you. What's really cool about that is the pricing is very easy to determine because they bill per node. So we know, and a node is a host. So we know this is how much the host is per hour. Do I need one host, 3 hosts, 4 hosts? You can't do 2 in a VCF cloud. It has to be either 1 or 3 or more. And that's for redundancy. 1 is not production ready because now your vSAN is running on all local hardware on a single host. So you basically can't do anything to that host, reboot it. So 3 or more gives you that vSAN redundancy. But for CloudIBR, for your monthly test, 1 is perfect because you don't need redundancy if you're not going to be accessing the server in production. So we keep that really inexpensive with Google by standing up a single node, restore your data there, and everything else that you've seen in CloudIBR and that you guys have used, it'll all be identical. It'll just be a different physical location. And they have locations, I believe it's in the several dozen at this point. I think I counted 30 something the other day, in over 12 different countries, different regions of different countries. So that'll be really cool for a lot of, Veeam has a very international presence. Just, you guys, Veeam Vanguard, Veeam 100, a lot of them are not US based. And a lot of them use our product, which is really cool. And that's, kind of how we met you guys a couple of years ago at Veeam.
Yeah, no, that's awesome because I know I do have international presence with some of my customers. And so we look to put their buckets in their regions. And that has been one of the challenges of how do we as a US based operation, I mean, we all are here, of service these other companies that want what we're doing in our services. And then they're bound by those GDPRs or those data locality. So that's going to be really great. I look forward to that because I know we're ready to kind of chomp at that ourselves. We're going to kind of move into some final thoughts here, and I'll let you go last, Greg. So I'm going to jump over to Jonah. You've been using it, you've tested it, you've been cloud service provider, Veeam Vanguard. You're all over the map with Veeam and Hackathon Leader and whatnot. I mean, what are your takes on CloudIBR or anything we've talked about today?
I love CloudIBR. I actually signed my company up as a reseller just, I think, 2 weeks ago. We've undergone some new leadership in the last few months. That leadership is trying to kind of, as I said earlier, figure out how we can address the lower cost parts of the market where we have a gap in our portfolio right now. And the mandate is essentially for net new customers and existing customers. Where can we start moving some of our workloads to the cloud, either as secondary copies or as lower cost solutions? Using the Wasabis, the Backblazes, the Data Cloud Vaults, and the CloudIBRs of the world.
I love it. CloudIBR from the concept of, so I talk a little bit about the tertiary. We are always telling everybody to go to these tertiary spots, these or S3 buckets and whatnot. What I really like on the pro services side is I pitch to my customers, okay, you have multi-sites, you're going up to S3 buckets, but really what we're trying to architect in our world is every one of their sites should have a CloudIBR instance. So if everything went sideways or 2 sites went down, those 2 sites could be up in the cloud, they could talk, and then they can, go back where they need to. But really the driver that I like is if we look at the Azure side of VRO, that pricing is going to be monthly. If I'm going to fail up into there and spin in there, I'm going to get dinged for a lot of that month. It's not going to be those hourly numbers that you're producing over there. So when we're talking, oh my gosh, it's $7 an hour. Let's say it's extreme. It's $7 an hour. You think this is the end of the world. And you're like, well, 7 by 24, however many days. And you're like, well, that could be expensive. Well, no, because you didn't buy a data center. You didn't have all your hands over there. You didn't have the total cost of ownership of patching and all these different firmware updates and security teams. And the cost grows exponentially and hardware recycles. So of course you just want Amazon or AWS. Well, now you're back to what do I pay? With CloudIBR, I can take my customer to their website very transparently. And I can say, listen, which do we want? Do we want gold, silver, platinum, platinum plus? Let's run a little calculator. That should cost how many sites? Here we go. It's done. And like you said, when it comes to pro services, I probably bill about 2 hours in there per site to onboard, figuring that there's some intricacy that I'm not quite knowing yet, or if I want to run some tests with them, but it's very upfront to the customer where they understand it's a short ramp, it's on, because I know in our cycles, everybody tends to take too long to sign their professional services agreement. Then they ink the contract and they want it done yesterday. When we bring on an IBR, it's very easy for us to go, okay, well, you've delayed for 2 months on this thing. We inked it. Now, guess what? You're right. It can be done in a week. And it's very exciting. And there's your report. And now somebody literally can answer this, because this is the crux when we meet with people. We say Veeam beyond the clicks at Different Dev. When we go beyond the clicks, it's not just, I have some software that runs. There's always some executive profusely sweating in a room going, but can I recover? And everybody goes, well, I think so, because I didn't get any errors. You give them this report and it's like, yes, I can recover. Yeah, but is it offsite? Yes. Can we access it? Yes. And if you want, you can do the manual test. Like you said, the manual shutdown. They can see it. They can benchmark it. It ticks all those boxes without having to do those complexities. Hooks to the Veeam Data Cloud. It hooks to S3 buckets. Like anywhere you seem to be, you're good. And now with your feature set coming around the globe, now it really does expand out. So those are my kind of thoughts. Greg, you get to kind of close us out before we play some music and stuff. So bring it all around, pay the bills, plug yourself, thoughts.
You brought up a great point with the DRaaS and the colo and doing all that. By the time you ink the deal, by the time you order the hardware, get it all in, and then by the time you actually get it live, you usually need new hardware at that point, because it took so many years to get there. CloudIBR, you sign up and literally in less than 30 minutes, you can be running your first recovery. And that $7 an hour, even at the highest of, $18 an hour, that would have cost them $5,000, $10,000 a month. And if you have a real disaster and you fail over to us and you're going to be there for more than a month, you basically can sign up for monthly pricing and get a better rate. We've seen a couple of customers who loved it so much, they signed a 3-year deal and they haven't left because it's their new production. And we'll recover them to a separate facility if their dedicated hardware has any issues there. So working with partners like you guys, we just had a great quote from one of the legends, Vanguard, who posted. He was explaining his experience, his onboarding, and one of my favorite sentences was he said, "Honestly, it's quicker to do it than to explain it." The onboarding process. And I was like, and that just sums up how, we make this interface as simple as possible to give you the fastest onboarding, yet the most capabilities on the back end. And we do that based on our decades of experience of, here's the questions I need you to answer for me, and I'm going to build out what will work for 99% of companies out there. And for the 1% here and there where it's not a perfect fit, we work with partners like you guys and we take your feedback. We have a very agile development cycle. And we only have one goal, and that's to just keep bringing on new customers and making sure they're recoverable. So when we get feedback from guys like you, from our direct end users, feature requests, if we see something, we get some great ideas from our customers. They ask for something simple and it's, let's get that in, and we get it in within a week or so. Case in point, Anthony Spiteri from Veeam, he reached out to me and said, Veeam Data Vault, it would be awesome if you could get this to work with CloudIBR. A week later, I messaged him back. I said, it's in production, check it out. And he asked me on Teams, he said, who were you working with on the inside to get that up and running so quickly? I was like, nothing, no one, we just figured it out. It's just make it work. Like Veeam says, it just works. So that's our goal.
No, that's great. Well, thank you both for, of course, being here today. My co-host, Jonah May, Greg, CloudIBR. Listeners, go out there, go ahead and check out Cyber Fortress. If you want a cloud service provider, you have CloudIBR for your recovery needs as well. They work together, Different Dev, Pro Services. Funny, all three of us work together. That's what we all learn about the Veeam environment. We always joke and say you can't say anything bad about anybody because you'll probably work with them or for them at some point. So thank you both for being here. We're going to play some music on our way out, and we'll catch you next episode.
See you at Veeam.
Whether you're a seasoned solutionist or just starting out, the Rebel Devs podcast is a must listen. So join us. Comment, share, and subscribe. Be part of the Rebel Devs.